Welcome, I'm your host Lee Adams, and today we have another in a series of our local author series. This one's really interesting to me because it talks about our veterans and how much we appreciate them and are indebted to them and why we're still free and have all the freedoms that we have. Today we're going to talk about World War II. And it's a story about World War II that not a lot of people know about because Normandy and the South Pacific got a lot of the press, but there was all kinds of things going on in World War II. And today we're going to talk about a book called The Italian Campaign, One Soldier's Story of a Forgotten War. We have the author, Valerie Defazio Vacula, with us today. Valerie, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And your father, who this story is about, Mr. Albert Defazio. Mr. Defazio, it's a real honor to have you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
So, before we get into the service and the war, I just want to talk, because you talk in this book about your family growing up. And, I think there's some interesting things there. So, did your parents immigrate from Italy to here?
Yes, from the same town, but they weren't married yet.
I see. So they met here?
Yes.
Okay, I gotcha. And so how many kids in your family?
Well, there was 5 of us, 4 boys and 1 girl.
And you were number what?
3.
Number 3. So what was it like growing up in your family? What did you speak? What languages were spoken?
Well, my first language was Italian because we lived amongst a lot of Italians, and that's all we spoke. We were kids. We spoke Italian.
Yeah, I mean, Pittsburgh just has these little pockets. You have Polish, you have Irish, you have Italians. It's and this. Where was this at? What part of Pittsburgh?
I was born and raised in Verona.
Verona. I gotcha. So, what were you eating? What were you guys eating growing up?
Well, I knew what we was going to eat every day because Mondays was one time. Then they had spaghetti. You had roast. You had, I have to think a little bit now, but my mother made a pasta fazool. If you know what that is, I think she knows what pasta fazool is.
What's your favorite?
Yeah, all of it.
Oh.
All of it.
Was your mom a good cook?
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Yeah, she was up early every morning, 5 o'clock, make sure you get everything ready, and like I say, I knew what we was going to eat every day.
What were you drinking?
Well, my dad made wine every year. I mean, 6, 7 barrels of wine. We're talking a lot of gallons. Now, out of us 5 kids, my dad never drank water. He said it would rust your pipes if you drank water. So he just had to nod his head like this, and we knew what he wanted. So downstairs and bring the wine up, and he drank wine. Now, us kids, out of the 5 of us, neither one of us is an alcoholic or drink.
But you were drinking wine as kids.
Oh yeah. Well, every once in a while we take a little glass.
I
or
see.
Something like that.
So you weren't drinking it like water.
Oh God, no.
That's
No,
what I mean. So it would rust your pipes.
That's what my dad used to say. If you drank water, you would rust your pipes. The only time you drank water is just for a joke. But he had a big glass, 2 glasses of wine.
That's funny.
At dinner time.
Where did you go to school?
I went to school at Verona had their own school at the time, and that's where I went to school at Verona High School.
What can you come up with a couple of really good memories of growing up?
Well, the thing is, I didn't like school, wasn't good at it. So then I got in a little bit of trouble, and the principal called me in, and he says to me, I was 16 years old in 10th grade now. I should have been way up. Yeah. So he told me, he says, listen, he says, you're not going to graduate this year either, So I figured, well, if I'm not going to graduate, I said goodbye. So I quit school at 16.
What did your parents say?
Well, what could they say? What good could you do? They didn't like it, but I just didn't graduate. I quit school, went to work.
You went to work?
Yeah.
I see. So Valerie, let's talk about you. I mean, now, where did you grow up?
In Penn Hills.
And how many people were in your family?
It's just my brother and I.
Your brother, and are you 1 or 2?
I'm 1.
You're number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Well, were you speaking Italian in your family?
No, he never spoke spoke it to us when we were growing up.
Was there? I'm guessing he didn't make 6 barrels of wine.
No,
No,
not
like
at our
his
home.
dad
No,
did.
my uncle does, but no, he didn't.
Your uncle.
Yeah.
Your uncle.
Yeah.
And did you? By the way, did you have a garden?
Oh my God, yes, you had two big gardens and one at the back behind the house.
What
My
was
mother
it?
canned everything.
What was in the garden?
Everything, tomatoes, peppers, greens, whatever you could grow. My mother grew it and she put it in jars. And from school, everybody else used to go play baseball and that. We had to go up to the garden and work in the garden.
Did you?
Oh yeah, every night.
Oh my! So that garden was feeding the family.
Oh God, yes.
Right?
Hundreds of jars my mother put up.
Wow! Wow! Did you have a garden, Valerie?
No,
No.
no.
And so, where did you go to school?
Penn Hills.
And what would be some of the memories that you can come up with growing up that were fond memories for you?
Okay, well, when I was 11, I went to my dad and I said, I want to twirl baton. He said, oh, okay. He said, there was 2 corps in Penn Hills at the time, and he took me to both of their rehearsals, and he didn't like either one of them, and neither did I, so he did the next best thing, and he started his own drum and baton corps, and they were the Stars and Stripes of Penn Hills, and they were together 27 years. They weren't just a fly-by corps. It was the Stars and Stripes is what he called them.
Did you have a musical background, Mr. Defazio?
I never took a lesson, but I played in the school band since I was
What did you play?
drum.
You played the drum.
Yeah.
You know the old joke. If you don't like your neighbor, buy your kid a drum set. Did you ever hear that one?
No, I never did.
I don't know. It's funny, but so I guess do you even need lessons with the drums?
Well, excuse
know.
me. We had somebody come to the school and would
teach
be
you-
dismissed from class, and he'd
teach
give
you
us
how
a
to do
lesson.
it.
Yes.
So you were playing the drums in school.
Yeah.
And so when your daughter said she wanted to do that, you wanted to get involved with that in some
Oh.
way?
Yes.
And so what happened with that, Valerie?
Well, like I said, he started the Stars and Stripes. We started at the bottom of the St. Gerard's Church in Penn Hills. And the first year we just wore like navy blue shorts and everything had to be red, white, and blue. And I couldn't understand it at first. And all those years we never strayed away from that type of music. Stars and Stripes, She's a Grand Old Flag, all that
Patriotic
music.
So your dad started this?
Yes. Yes.
And why did you want to do that?
I grew up like that. I was in a school band, one of the best around,
And then you were in Vernacular.
and then I was in a drum and bugle corps. So then why not?
So your daughter
I loved the kids.
Yeah, and your daughter wanted to do it, so you
Yes.
thought you'd get involved.
Yes.
So what did you do, Val? Did you march in parades and things like
Oh,
that?
yeah. He sent me for private lessons. So when it came time to pick a head majorette, he brought in a stranger because he didn't want anybody to know us, and we all tried out. And the woman says to him, "That's your head majorette over there." And he goes, "No." And she goes, "Why not? It's your best one." He goes, "I can't." She said, "Why not?" He goes, "That's my daughter." and so I went home and I cried to my mother, so I ended up being the head majorette.
Really?
Yeah. But, I was the best at the time because I had started private lessons for a while.
That's hard to twirl that baton.
Yeah,
isn't
it was, yeah, but I enjoyed it.
Did
Yeah.
you pick it up pretty good?
Yeah, I did, yeah. And he made my brother a drummer in the corps also.
Oh, that's interesting. My daughter went to Penn State, and she roomed with the blue sapphire. I don't know if you know what
Yes.
that means, but she's the one that's the baton twirler in the blue band.
In the blue band,
at
yes.
the 107,000 people at Beaver Stadium. She's throwing that baton up.
Yes.
They don't just let anybody do that.
No.
You have to be good. And how hard was it?
At times it was hard. I mean, we had to learn different routines every year. You didn't just keep the same one all the time. So, I picked it up pretty easily.
So those are good memories for
Yes,
you.
oh yeah.
Just meeting all the kids on the team and going and doing all this. So were you in charge of the whole boat? Did you get them going and tell them what they were going to do and everything?
Yeah, I started it from the beginning.
No kidding.
Ended up, I had 85 kids, boys and
Wow.
girls.
How did you get all these kids?
Oh, Penn Hills was big at the
There's a
time.
lot of people there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there was 2 other corps in the area.
Oh, okay.
I liked it. I liked children, kids, and I started, and I've had it for 20-some years.
That's wonderful. It's wonderful. So, Mr. Defazio, now you're out of high school. You're working, right? You went to work a little bit. Now, did you get? This is World War II now.
Okay, go ahead.
So Did you get drafted, or did you enlist?
I got drafted. As soon as I turned 18 years old, I was gone.
So when you got that letter in the mail, what did you think?
Well, I really didn't think nothing about it. I just did what they was told.
Yeah.
Took my examination, and they shipped me out.
So you go down to Maryland,
Yes.
and they talk to you.
Oh, yes.
And what did they talk to you about?
Well, he asked me what branch of the service I would have wanted in, and I said, I want to be in the Marines, He said, no. I said, okay, then I'll take the Navy. He said, no. He said, we're going to put you in the Army, I said, well, then why did you ask me where I wanted to be?
Yeah, right.
He said, well, because you don't have a high school education. I said, okay, and that's how it ended up.
I see. So did they ask you any other questions there that you found interesting?
Well,
They asked you something about Italy, didn't they?
Oh, yeah. Well, they said to me, you might be shipped to Italy, and I didn't care, I didn't much care. And he said, would you have any motions about shooting at your own relatives? I said, well, they're my relatives, but I'm an American. I said, they could shoot at me. I said, I'm going to shoot at them. And that was the end of it.
So if someone's shooting at you, you're going to shoot back.
Oh, I don't care who he is, yeah.
I got you. So then they take you down to Mississippi, right?
Yes, Camp Shelby, Mississippi.
And tell me what that was like.
Well, I'll tell you, I sort of liked the service. I did. I didn't get no homesick or that didn't bother me whatsoever. The training was tough, but it made a man out of you.
Yeah.
We went 20-mile hikes, back and forth, and it was nice. I liked it,
But did they try to slot you? Did they try to get you to do different things? You talked about the bugle or something, I thought, in the book.
Well, they come down, I don't know who it was, he gave me a bugle. I didn't know what a bugle was. So he said, go up to and go to the bandmaster up there, and he'll tell you what to do. Well, I said, you ain't gonna make no bugler out of me, I said. So I went up there, and I went to I think it was the captain or whatever it was. I said, well, what is it? I said, well, somebody my sergeant give me this here thing here. And it was a bugle. I know what it was. And then he said, hey, go on back to where you came and get out of here. So that's when I went back. I gave the bugle back to the sergeant, and that was it. No bugle boy for me.
So they tried to make you a bugle
Yeah.
boy. Wonder why.
I don't know.
And you wanted no parts of that.
No, I don't want to be.
No. You want what? Did you want to go to war and fight?
Well, I begged to go. When they got us all together when basic training was over, they come out and they had the list. They says, we have a list of you, all the ones that's going to ship out. Went down the list. When they go alphabetical order. When they got down to the Defazios, they skipped my name. So they went down to the end, and then they said, well, we have another list here. This is called, it was a supernumerary list. I thought it was a disease or something.
What is that?
And so finally, when it's over, I went to the commander and I said, what is this business? I said, I wasn't on that first list. He says, you was on the second list. And I said, yeah. If anybody can't make it from the first list, then they'll pick somebody from the second list, the supernumerary. I said, well, then there's a chance too they can't pick it. He said, yeah. And I said, no. I said, I don't want none of that. I want to go with the people I trained with. I trust them. Can't do it. This come from headquarters. I can't change nothing. Oh my God, nearly in tears. So I went to see my company commander, the captain, and I told him the story about it. I said, and I want to go. And he says to me, he says, I'm sorry, son. He says, I can't go against this list from headquarters. So I left almost in tears. And so finally the next day, the captain comes up to me. He says, Defazio, I don't know what you did, but you're here on the list to go. And that's the way that, and then they shipped me down to Newport News, Virginia, and gathered 500 ships, and we shipped out.
You know, I mean, a lot of people would do anything not to go to war, and you're begging to go to war. I mean, that says a lot to me. I mean, I think that's pretty special. But so now you're in Virginia, and there's 500 ships.
Believe me.
I can't even imagine that.
500 because they were all kinds. There was sub chasers, all kinds of ships you were. Because we went out and we docked out into the ocean. Come morning, you look at, and that's all you seen was ships all over.
Wow.
They told us there were going to be 500 ships.
Wow. So they throw you on a ship, and what was it like on the ship?
Well, they starved us there.
Starved you?
Yeah, we got like
What
a
do you
toy. We get a round cracker, and we go through the line. I said, well, maybe they're going to give us something later on. They gave us nothing.
You get a cracker.
A big round cracker like that and something to drink, and that was it for the whole day. And that was for 30 days.
30 days you got a cracker. That's what they give people. That's what they used to give people in prison. Cracker and water.
Well, what we did, somebody broke into the hold of the ship. Went down in there and they had K rations, kind of rations, that they give in, and they started throwing them out. Till they found out, they went down and welded the lid shut. Couldn't get it no more.
Oh my gosh. So they want you to go to war and fight for us, but yet they're giving you crackers and water.
Believe me when I tell you.
And I'm guessing not everybody was really kind of getting along with those waves either.
Oh my God, we hit a storm. Almost shoved me overboard. Good thing I caught a rope. Right?
Overboard?
I'd have still been swimming. Yeah, that would have been overboard. I caught a hold of a rope to hold on to her.
Good thing
that
you did.
ship would go, because them Liberty ships were small. It was a merchant marine.
So that made the waves even more.
Well, this ship would go down, and all you'd see was water. And then it would come up like a ball, up to the top.
Well, there had to be some seasick people on that ship.
There was a lot of them.
So you're not eating much at all, and there's a lot of people getting seasick.
Believe me, a lot of them.
So you probably remember that a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
You don't want to go back for that. No, we don't want that. So where did they ship you to?
Oran, Africa. Shipped into Oran. Then we had a chance to go on leave into Casablanca.
They made a movie about that.
Yeah, Humphrey Bogart. I met him over there when he was here.
Did you?
No, just kidding. We got to leave. And they said, when you go, stay where you're at. Don't go around Casablanca. He says, because you're going to get in big trouble. And you better be here when the trucks come to get you, take you back to camp. Because if you're not, we're going to leave you there. But we came back from Casablanca.
Yeah. So now you're in Africa, and they took you on a train somewhere, right?
They took us down to the train station and loaded us on the cattle cars. 80 of us to a car.
So you were like cattle.
Oh, exactly. You couldn't lay down to sleep.
No?
Took us 3 days to get to Algiers from the train station there.
Was the food better?
No, we had to eat K rations that they give us, C rations and K rations we had, And
It's not like the Italian food you were growing up with.
Oh, God, no.
No.
No. Then from there, it took us 3 days, we got to Algiers. And we got to Algiers there, it was, everybody got dysentery, but not me. And you'd see these guys running for the latrine, And when they stopped, you knew, hey, he didn't make it. And he had beautiful oranges over there. You get up in the morning, not the service, the Arabs. And if you got there early enough and you got some oranges, if not, you didn't get nothing. And they fed us one meal a day there.
Yeah.
And there was Italian prisoners in there. And this guy made a set of rings. I got them on, one was marked Anzio, the other one was Monte Cassino. And I bought them from him. I still have them at home.
Really?
Yeah. But then from there, they took us down to first of all, then they called us all in, and they said somebody had stolen a truckload of mattress covers. Now, the Arabs would buy the mattress covers, and they'd wear them. They cut 3 holes in it, one here, one for the head, and they put them on. That's what they did. And they stole the truck and all. Never did find out who it was. Never did. They sold them on the black market for $20.
When did they tell you where you were going?
Never did. They're a bunch of liars.
What do you mean?
They never tell you where you were going.
They
Never.
just said, we're going.
We're going, and when we got there, then that's when you found out.
Well, you say liars. Did you ask them where you were going?
No, well, you ain't gonna tell you anyhow. Yeah, I think they got a school for them officers to go and lie.
Well, so when you then got to Italy, right?
Well, then we went down to the Mediterranean Sea.
Okay.
And they loaded us on an English ship. It was a troop ship, you know. I thought it was the Merrimack from the Civil War. That thing was rusted and Nilton all over, you know. So then, it was at nighttime, so then they shipped us over, and we spotted land. And I was left with a funny feeling because my mother and dad, we landed at Naples, Italy. And my mother and dad took off from Naples, Italy to come to this great country. And then they shipped us to the Mussolini racetrack. Then we went to dinner. I think they gave us horse meat at that time because
Horse meat.
I think the meat was red and sweet and stringy, you know. And I asked the cook, I says, is this regular beef or is this horse meat? He said, this is a horse track, ain't it? He says, yeah. I see any horses? I seen 2. You know. Now, whether they did or not, I don't know. Whether he was lying.
But he
to me.
inferred that.
But then
it
when
was horse meat.
when I started to go back to camp, I was going at a pretty good trot.
That's a good one, Mr. Defazio.
Now, whether it was horse meat or not, I would say it was, but I don't think so.
I never had horse meat, and I don't think I'm ever going to. Yeah. But it doesn't sound real appetizing. So now you're in Italy. It's funny you say you had that funny feeling in Naples. You know, your parents left Naples, and you got to Naples. So what do you mean about that funny feeling? What do you mean about that?
Well, you said, well, this is where my mother and father come from, this country of Italy. And that's all, you know.
Yeah.
Now, they didn't know each other. They come from the same town over there.
And
but
they met in the States.
Her brother introduced my dad to my mother.
I see.
Then he got married in this country.
Interesting. So now we're in Italy. Well, now finally you're there. You're at the Mussolini racetrack, and they're feeding you horse meat. Then what happens?
Well, then they come around and they give us patches, a T patch. It says Texas 36th Division. They said, sew this on your jackets and that. Tonight, it says we're heading for the front. Okay, come dark. They have to go at night because daylight there, no good. So they took us out, and we started to hear the fire going on, you know, cannon and stuff like that, the artillery. And we got to the mountain to join the 36th. We were replacements for the 36th Division, Texas Division. So we got to the base of the mountains in wintertime and dug our foxhole, slept there all night. In the morning, the 36th come in and joined them. We went up to the top of the mountain, and they let us pitch our little pup tents, 2 to a pup tent. And we got up in the morning, and it was January. It was snowed about 4 inches, and it was January the 14th. The reason I remembered that so much, I just turned 19 years of age.
And how old are you now?
91.
91. And you're telling us what day it was when you were 19.
Yeah.
That's pretty good, Mr. Defazio.
Wow.
You're the first person, I've been doing this for over 20 years, you're the first person over 90 on my show, and you're telling me at 19 what day it was when you're pitching the tent.
January
I'm
14th.
impressed, but anyway, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's no problem. And am I going too fast? Or
No, I'm right with you.
Well, then they put lookouts out, you know, because we're on the mountain, we're looking down at the river. The Rapido River, and of across the field, and on top was Monte Cassino, where the monks stayed. Well, anyhow, they picked my turn to go and for the lookout, and our captain was with us. Why, I don't know. And they said, when you go there, find a spot behind a rock and stay there, don't move. Because if you do, they're going to send some artillery in there. So we're sitting there, and the captain looks, hey, soldier, he says, go down to camp down here, get the burner. Because they used to give us chocolate bars. And you put them on the heater and melt them, you'd have hot chocolate. You might as well drink mud. That's what they give. So anyhow, the captain tells me, he says, go down there and get that burner, bring it up, have hot chocolate. I says, Captain, if you want hot chocolate, you go get it yourself.
Why'd you say that?
Because you're gonna, I wanted to fight it, and they started throwing artillery shells and that in there. Then I got scared. I said, oh my God. I said, I told the captain, or talk back to him.
Yeah.
So when I got back to camp, I told the guys about it, and the non-commissioned officer, he said, don't worry about it. I said, what do you mean don't worry about it? It's a captain, guys disobeyed. You got your little book that they gave you? And I said, well, I have it, I don't know where it's at. Read it. Any officer or non-commissioned officer that tells you what to do and they don't do it themselves, you're all right, they're wrong. So that was the end of that.
Wow. So you got through that one.
Yeah, because he should have never asked me.
Right.
Why don't you do it himself?
So now is this where the battle was?
It's coming up if you want to hear it.
I do want to hear.
Well, anyhow, they replaced the captain. Why, I don't know. They got us all together, and we went up, and he introduced himself. He says, he was a redhead, Lieutenant
Spike.
Lieutenant Spike. He said, my name is Lieutenant Spike. I'm your new company commander. Most of you young fellas will be killed before I even learn your name. And I said to myself, yeah, you shouldn't have said that.
No, I mean, I don't think they teach that in commander school.
But so help me God.
Most of you are going to be killed, so I don't need to know your name.
That's what he said before I learn your name.
Mr. Defazio.
That's what
Let's think about that
But I'm going to tell you
statement.
something. He was right. Because we got massacred twice.
Well, I can't even believe I just heard that.
Oh, believe me when I tell you.
Yeah,
I
because
don't
you're
lie
not.
about it.
Yeah, I know. I'm sure you don't make that up.
No.
You can't make that up. So.
Well, then,
Wow.
so he comes around to get acquainted with everybody, and he stops me and my buddy, and he says, you two guys look so much alike, I can't tell you apart. We were like twins. Okay, fine. Yeah. So anyhow, they got us all together, and they said, we're going to go down to the river up here. We're going to attack Monte Cassino. Okay. So we did. They put smoke pots out. You couldn't see nothing with the smoke pots. So when you're down there, grab the backpack of your buddy in front of you and both sides, because you'll get lost. Because you're not going to see nothing.
So you can't see anything, but you just got smoke in front of you. You're
That's all.
Grabbed onto everybody, and you're just going forward.
Yes. So we headed down the mountain. We got down, started a little off a little bit, still couldn't see nothing. All of a sudden, all hell broke loose.
Really?
Oh, my God. I see piles of guys, 2, 3, 4, up missing an arm or a leg. And every second or so, another one, big shell would hit, And I see the same thing. And I said, I don't want to see no more. So I hit the ground. And I couldn't hear no orders or nothing. So I said, I got to get out of here. I got up and I went towards the river. I got to the bank of the river. Of course, the smoke then was gone. And they had footbridges to go across to go towards Monte Cassino. So I looked down and you see guys on the bridges, they're falling off with all that equipment on. They ain't never coming up, I looked upstream and there was a bridge there. And I got up and I went and got the bridge and I went across to hit the bank. And laid on the bank there and I looked up ahead because Usually, sometimes they'll counterattack, you know. I didn't see nothing. Finally, I heard orders, fall back. So I did. Back up the mountain. I was cold. I was wet and tired, you know. I sat down and I put my head between my legs and I couldn't believe what I saw. I just couldn't believe it.
Yeah, you're growing up in Verona. You're just going to school. You get a little job. They send you to boot camp. They send you on this boat. You're over in Italy, and you see all this carnage.
Yes, I couldn't believe it because I
Yeah.
think that
What do you do with that?
yeah. Well, anyhow, when I was there with my head down there, and I got nightmares. Once in a while, I still do. And the thing is, then they said that you know had to retreat, go back up to the top of the mountain again, you know. So we got back up there, like I said, and then finally the lieutenant come around. He said, "Well, put some dry clothes on, socks and that." He says, "We're going back again tonight." I said, "Oh my God!" I says, "I won't make it. I'm going, but
We're going to do that again.
I says, I'm not going to make it. How could I be so lucky the first time?"
Right.
You know.
That's a bad feeling.
So anyhow, they got us all together, ready to go, and this time they said, "We're not putting the smoke pots on." I said, "Thank God, the idiot that ordered them should have never done it, because they knew where we were, you know."
Right.
So anyhow, we started back down the mountain, down the place where all hell broke loose. Nothing. Not a fire was shut. Now, to go across the river, they replaced them with rubber pontoon boats. And if they break loose, you go downstream, maybe stop at a bar someplace to get a drink or something. But we're not going to dive in the water, you know. So we got across, and it was me, my lookalike, and the officer. He says to me, because we had a lot of men to cross, he says, "You know, soldier," he says, "I'm starting a special units training going up, and when I do, I want you to come with me." Well, I never knew what it was because then we were on the move. So then he says to me, "Let's go." So I got up, my lookalike, and then we started across a big field, empty field. And on the end of that is where the Monte Cassino was. So we're walking, and I'm looking back, and the three of us was the only ones up front. The rest of them were still crossing the river because you had a lot of men to cross. So not a shot was fired. Everything was quiet. So then I said, "Oh, they must have pulled out, you know." As soon as I said that, all hell broke loose again. A shell hit behind me and blew me 3 feet into a drainage ditch. And I was out of it for seconds, that's all. Finally, I come to, and I felt some pain in the back of me. And I put my hand back in, my finger went in a hole, and I was bleeding. I felt it in my back. I put my hand back there, and my finger went in the hole of my back. I was hit there too. And I looked over to my lookalike. Oh God. He was
Remember
gone.
his name?
I never remembered his name. I
Yeah.
can't remember his name.
Your lookalike.
Yeah, and he was gone. Because his whole back was shattered. It was gone.
So it killed him and it injured you.
Yes. Now the lieutenant was on the other side of him, hollered over, and said, "You guys all right?" I says, "No, Lieutenant, I'm hit in 2 places, but I think my buddy's gone." He says, "Well, go back across the river and get some help." I said, "Yeah, how am I going to get back? I'm going to call a taxi cab." And I said, "Well, I either got to lay in this ditch here and freeze to death or bleed to death. Or if not, the Germans are going to get me in the morning." I said, I'll have to go try to get back. So I got up, you know, and I'm hobbling. And everything was coming in, small arms fire, mortars, everything. How in the world I ever made it, I'll never know. So I got within 10 feet of the river, ready to cross, and then to my left, the shell hit there. And I seen one of the GIs was hit there pretty bad. So instead of me crossing the river to get some help, I went over to him. He was the only one there. Everybody else was already, we were so far ahead of him that everybody else was already across the river. And I leaned down and I looked at him, and who do you think it was? Lieutenant Spike, the one that said, most of you guys will be killed before the night. And he was out of it. He was hit bad. Good thing I saw. I said, we got to get him out of here. He's going to die. So I looked upstream. I've seen a couple of guys, and I hollered at him. Hey, come on over here. I said, Lieutenant Spike's hit, but he's out of it. He's just moaning. So they come over and carried him down to the river, put him in a pontoon boat, shimmied across, and walked along the shore. And we didn't know where he was going, because he was going for the hospital. So I asked some guys, I says, do you know where the field hospital is? He said, yeah, go down here, turn left, you'll run right into it. And we did. So, man, there was GIs laying all over outside. They were all over, wounded and whatever. You know.
What were those doctors and nurses like there?
I'm coming to that. So the guy, I happened to catch the orderly. I said, listen, we got Lieutenant Spike here's hit pretty bad. You got to get him in, he's going to die. You know. He looked at him. He said, oh yeah, I'm going to take him in. What about you? I said, I'm hit in 2 places, but I can survive now. I won't forget you. I'll be right back. He says, we're loaded inside. Them doctors and nurses will work. So we got in there. Oh my God. The doctors would patch up, do whatever. Then the nurses would take over. They were loaded in there, you know. And then he come out. He got me right away, and then he come out, took me, gave me a pill after he operated on me. Took the shrapnel out. I found myself in the Naples hospital, and from there, I was there. I forget how long I was there. They shipped me back to my outfit, and out of my whole platoon, 6 of us came back alive.
How many, do you know about how many were there?
Well, I'd be guessing. Now, some of them was either they were either killed or they were wounded bad enough that they could not come back. Only 6 of us. Then from there, I don't know whether you want to hear the other battle or not.
You were in another
Anzio,
battle?
The invasion of Anzio.
Yeah.
Well, when I got back there, it was several weeks, they took us down to the Mediterranean. And loaded us on the LSTs, landing ship craft, you know. There was 2 of them. One of them was in Pittsburgh here. I went down to see. I don't know whether that was the one that was on or not that took me up for the invasion. But there's only 2 of them. So they took us up the coast and we landed and invaded Anzio. And we got as far as the mountain, and oh my God, took another beating there because they made a big mistake. They should have never stopped at the bottom of the mountain. So we should have taken the high ground. Because by that time, there was a surprise attack to the Germans. At that time, they sent their Panzer Division over to block us, which they did, because we were only 20 miles from Rome.
Mm.
Then we got one hell of a bombardment there. Oh man, it was terrible. So the medic happened to be there. He picked me up, took me back to the first aid station.
Did you get hit?
No, not there. No, I didn't. We went back to the farmhouse. I was shooken up pretty good. Didn't know where I was. That's why he picked me up, took me back. And back there, they were loaded back there too, outside, wounded. One guy, his stomach was sticking out. He's sliced across there. They're trying to push it in, but they couldn't do it, you know. So the next thing I know, I ended up in the field hospital, and the doctor examined me. He says, son, I'm not sending you back to your outfit. I'm sending you home. By that time, it only was a couple of weeks, the war was over in Italy. Mark Clark marched right into Rome. And then after that, my division went to Europe. But that's the end of the 2 big battles.
So those doctors and nurses took care of you?
Oh my God, they deserved credit.
Were they good people?
Oh God, yes. Them nurses were wonderful.
Were they?
They talk to try to calm you down or whatever, and them doctors working feverishly, you know, all the time.
We don't talk about them very often. I guess MASH was a big TV show that kind of showed that a little bit, but those are people that really saved a lot of lives.
I'm just going to say that they really did. They couldn't They'd go all night, all day, operating, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they were
and
wonderful. The nurses, oh.
they
couldn't-
probably saw some terrible things.
Oh, God, yes.
You saw some
Uh-huh.
terrible things.
Yeah, it was terrible.
So you went on a pass one day, and you ran into some people that you might have been related to. Tell that story.
We went to this canteen, and all GIs went to this. And GIs come right and say, hey, is there anybody here from around Pittsburgh? I said, yeah, why? He says, a little Italian fellow over here. He says, he's been asking everybody. So I went over to him, and I started talking. I speak good Italian.
From they were saying from Pittsburgh.
From Pittsburgh, yeah.
This is Middle Italy.
Yeah. And that man was my mother's first cousin.
Get out.
Unbelievable. He said, you got to come with me. You got to come with me. Where? I said, come to my house. I'm going to call the town your mother and father were born and tell them you're here. And he did.
That's unbelievable.
Oh, yeah. No, that's
How does that happen?
Well, I don't know, but that's nothing. And so he called the town, and they said, oh, my God, we want to see him. Because my dad still had a brother and a sister over there, and my mother had two brothers and a sister.
Do you have your soldier uniform on?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So they knew what you were doing. I can't even imagine living there in the middle of that war, but they were doing that.
Oh, yeah.
And you're over there trying to protect them.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah. I had the uniform. But then the best thing, when I wanted to go to I wanted to go to the town on the mountain where they were born, and I was asking everybody. They said, well, no, I don't know, but that town is where you're over there. So the guy said, go down to that farmhouse. Ask that gentleman. So I went down and knocked on the door. He come. We was talking, my mother's brother.
Your mother's brother?
My mother's brother. He said, oh, you got to come here and get something to eat here. And he took me up to the town.
That's your uncle.
Yes, my uncle. It was my mother's brother.
That's
Unusual.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
And so they gave you food.
He had made me eat first. Then he took me up on top of the mountain and introduced me to my mother's mother and two brothers.
Your
He was one of the
grandmother.
brothers. And my dad's my dad's brother and a sister.
Another uncle and,
Yeah,
and an aunt.
yeah.
That's incredible.
And tons of cousins.
You didn't think that was going to happen joining the army?
No, never. It's unbelievable.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you saw some pretty disturbing things. And
What are you gonna do?
did you, when you got back to the States, did you talk much about it?
Never. This is, I think, it's the third interview that I've given. I've turned many down. Soldiers and sailors, I turned that down. Other ones, I turned them down. Like I said, it never bothered me to talk about it. I just didn't.
Well, I'm so honored you're here and that your daughter wrote this story. It's just an interesting story because I guess, Normandy and the South Pacific get a whole lot of press when it comes to World War II. And I mean, when we think about it, there was over 405,000 men and women killed in World War II and 75,750 missing in action, which was my uncle missing in action. So a lot of people talk about Normandy and the South Pacific, but they don't talk much about Italy.
Never.
And is that, Valerie, is that why you wanted to write this book?
Yes,
One of the reasons.
exactly.
Were there other reasons? You want to tell your
Well,
dad's story?
I wanted my, grandson, my daughter, my brother's kids, all to know what he went through because I just thought it was such an amazing story. I mean, who goes to war in Italy and ends up finding family? I mean, it just doesn't happen like that all the time.
No, like
No.
maybe hardly ever.
Yeah.
So, but you didn't talk about this when your kids were growing up?
No, never.
You felt like they didn't need to hear that.
No, I never talked about it.
So when did you start to hear this? With the book or before that?
I actually found out, I was a teenager, I don't know, about 14 or so, and he was in the bedroom cleaning out a drawer. And I seen these medals laying on the bed. Dad, what are these? Did you win them? Kinda. Never looked at me. I said, well, what are they? He said, well, I was in the war. I said, what war? My mother goes, he was in the Civil War. He goes, I was in World War II. I said, I didn't know that. And I said, well, what are these medals? He goes, well, I was wounded, and I have the Purple Heart. And there was the Bronze Star, but I didn't know what that was at the time. And like I said, the whole time he never looked at me. And I said, well, did you ever shoot anybody? He goes, I don't know. And I said, well, what do you mean you don't know? He goes, I hope not. And I thought, okay, he doesn't want to talk about this. So I just dropped it. And then years later, I had to be in my, I don't know, maybe 40s. It's when I really found out the whole story, because he had ran into Costa, or no, not Costa, from Penn Hills,
Doyle.
Mike Doyle, at a picnic.
Who's like a congressman?
Yes,
right?
yes. And he said, 2,000 veterans are dying each day, World War II veterans. He said, so, we're looking for their stories, so can you write it down for us? Well, he hand wrote it. He didn't know anything about typewriters or anything. So he asked me one day when I went over, he said, can you read this for me? And that was the first time I've ever read the whole story. I knew nothing about it.
Probably.
I sat there in
really
tears because it did, that I didn't know he had gone through all this. Yeah, that I was blessed to have him come home.
Yeah, because it was pretty close that he wasn't coming home.
Yeah, right.
And you wouldn't even be here.
That's right.
So you're reading that story for the first time.
Yes, tears, shaking my head. Couldn't believe that this was my dad that had to go through all this.
Wow.
Yeah.
But see, not only did the GIs suffer over there, the people suffered too. They couldn't get their bag and go to the grocery store and whatever they want.
The residents of Italy and France.
And when we come up with the front lines, we went to a rest area, and you'd see these kids they were maybe 8, 9 years old. It would be dinner time for us. They cooked for us when we come back from it. And they'd stay there. You'd see them stay within the outskirts. Thin faces, no smiles, no nothing. Put me to tears. They was waiting for whatever was left. They gave it to them, and they would take it home and divide it up amongst them. That was terrible too.
So when you read what he wrote, Valerie, what made you want to turn it into a book?
Well, at first I didn't do anything with it. It's been years, so I just started this 2 years ago. He had joined a Veterans Breakfast Club.
And what is that?
It's called the Veterans Breakfast Club, and they have breakfast every couple months. They hold one in Penn Hills at the Comfort Inn, and then they have them in all different places. They have them around here, I think, Bridgeville, Shaler, all those places. And they bring all veterans in from all the wars. And it's just a club that these guys get together and they serve breakfast. And then Todd Defazio is his name. He's the one that runs this. He'll stand up there and he'll call people up, make the veterans stand up and tell their stories, which I think that's a great idea, because it's so, I go to every breakfast with him now, and I'll sit there and I'll listen to these veterans. And some of the World War II veterans some of their stories are just so heart-wrenching. And it's like they'll start telling their story, and then all of a sudden they'll stop, and they're getting choked up. They're trying to make it through the rest of the story because of everything that they've seen. Mm-hmm. But I actually think it does help them to get it out, to talk to other veterans who have been through this. So, every time we get in the car, my dad goes, oh, we have to hear about Normandy again, or we have to hear about the South Pacific. So I thought, you know what, Dad, I'm just going to take your story and put it in a book. And that's what I did.
That daughter of yours, she was determined.
Yeah. I didn't come up with it. That would have never happened unless she took it up.
So what are the veterans' breakfasts like for you going there?
Well, I only missed one. I forget how long.
So I guess you like them a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, it gives me an out too,
Sure. And, I mean, these people went
They have one of those literatures on your pin board as you come in there.
Yeah, here. On the board as you come in here.
On here, they have one there. It's on your board.
Oh, I
there.
see. Mm-hmm. I see.
There's one there.
I see.
And DiPustino, he only lives, Mount Lebanon.
Yeah, I think so.
Does a wonderful job.
Does he?
Yeah, nice.
So you decided to write the book.
Yes.
And what was the challenges from that thought, Valerie?
Well, him not knowing places and dates. So, I had to do a lot of research on that. Where he was at this date, and the name of the mountain that he was on.
Although
and,
91, I'd sign up for that right now.
Yeah.
If I could be as sharp as you, first of all, I'd like to make it to 91.
Yeah.
But if I'm lucky enough to do, if I could remember what you remember at 91, I'd sign that right now. So but there were still, with all that, you're still a lot to research, right?
Yeah,
Val,
I
is
had
what
to
you're
research
saying?
all of that.
Yeah.
And I do think I do know the name of the gentleman that was his best friend, because in the book I have his A company of the 143rd Infantry. I have all their names and the dates that they were wounded or killed in action, missing in action. And the only one on that date that was killed in action was the gentleman's name of Joseph DeSanto. But I could say that 50 million times to him, and he just doesn't remember it. He remembers his lieutenant's name, which was Francis Gorman. He remembered his name, the one that he saved his life.
You think DeSanto was a lookalike?
Yes, was his friend, his best friend and lookalike. I think it
see.
was.
But there was so much going on that
Yeah.
you can't put it all together,
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
right?
Right.
Yeah. So you started writing the book. It took some time to do the research, but you finally finished it.
Right. And then him and I would go back and forth, you know. Okay, I'd write some and he'd say, well, it didn't happen like that, you know, then I'd have to change it around a little bit. And, you know, it took a while going back and forth for him trying to remember. And I said, Dad, I need more stories. And I know there's still not some in there that he didn't want to talk about. There's
And
just,
I
he
didn't
saw a lot
want
more.
any lies in that book either.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
right.
don't want, some books, you know, they make the liar
Make
out.
some things
I
up.
Yeah.
said, no, I don't want it.
You want a true
I
story.
want the true story,
Yeah.
or forget it.
Yeah, right. So I think it's wonderful that you wrote it, Valerie.
Thank you.
And I'm guessing that you got a lot out of it yourself.
Oh yeah, I learned a lot. I learned more from these breakfast meetings that I go to than I ever did in school. You know, I didn't care, you know, in school, but here, I
Can
mean,
anybody
going
go to those?
Oh,
yeah.
I want to go to those.
Okay.
Well, check the what's called
No,
downstairs.
that's an old one, Dad. So I think the next
Well,
one
give
coming
them an
up.
idea.
The next one coming up will be. They just had one July, so probably September in Penn Hills.
They have them all over the place. I'm out here too. Yeah.
I just have so much respect for our military. I mean, regardless of the war, I just think we're very fortunate to have what we have because we have our freedom,
Yes.
and that's priceless, right? So
Yes.
you learned a lot about the war, and you learned a lot about your dad
Yes.
doing all this,
Yes.
right? So you're probably glad you did it.
Oh yeah, I'm thrilled that I did it.
When I was ready to get out, I was going to sign up to go to the South Pacific. And so that's what the sergeant told me. He said, "What's the matter with you?" He says, "You got enough points. You can get. You're going to be getting out of here soon, in a matter of weeks." I said, "Okay." So that's what I did. Found a point system. You know.
Well, my Uncle Lee did that, what you said. He could have got out, and he didn't end up coming back. He was MIA. So I think it was a good idea that you didn't go back.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if we'd be sitting here, you know?
Right.
So it's wonderful. So when you think about this, Mr. Defazio, do you think about the guys that you were with and do you think about those guys?
Lots of times.
Do
a
you?
lot of times, yeah. I can't remember their names.
But I would think some of those, maybe there were some good memories.
Oh, we had some good times too. Don't forget. We had, even though it was bad, we had some good times.
So you had good times and you had horrifying times.
Yes. I went to visit Pompeii, the one that was buried 3,000 years ago, and the one that they built after that.
Yeah?
It was very interesting. I went.
What has the response been to your book, Valerie?
It's doing really well. I have it. It's on sale at my hair salon in Penn Hills, and I've got a lot of veterans that come in there, and
Get their
so
haircut.
They get their hair cut.
So you're a salon owner.
Yes,
And what's your title besides the owner?
just owner
Owner,
and stylist.
stylist.
Yeah.
And so if people want to get their hair cut, do you have a thing for veterans with there? Did I
We
read
do
that
have a
somewhere?
veterans special. We offer them a discount, veterans discount, and we're also having a veterans on September 11th. We're going to hold a fundraiser, and all veterans will get their hair cut free that day
At your salon
at my
in Penn Hills.
yes.
We'll tell her where the money's
Well, the
going.
money's going to go to the Veterans Breakfast Club.
She's going to donate it to
Yeah.
the Veterans Special.
That's so nice.
Yes,
And
because
so
they do
you-
a lot for our veterans. That Breakfast Club does a lot.
And so you're meeting veterans and you're trying to do some things
Mm-hmm.
for veterans, and why wouldn't we? Why shouldn't we?
Yes,
This
I
is
have
why-
much more respect for our veterans now, much more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we all need to learn these lessons.
Yes.
Don't you think?
Yes, they do.
Yeah. And I mean, the World War II guys, you guys are getting up in age.
We're not getting up there, we're there.
Well, I tell you what, you look great, and
Thank
you
you.
sound great for 91 years old.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. So, where can people buy your book?
It's on Amazon. It's like I said at my salon. It's also on Merriam Press. He was the editor and publisher, and it's also Barnes and Noble's website.
Gotcha. So if people want to buy it,
Yes.
Well, tell me,
Yeah.
if they said, yeah. if
Well,
you'll
yeah,
mail
yeah. A
it.
lot of people ask me, like
Mention-
through social media, like on Twitter and stuff, and I've offered to mail them out copies.
and you're on Facebook.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So I've mailed out quite a few.
That's great. So these veteran breakfasts are worth going to.
Oh yeah.
Oh, God, yes. You could draw over 100 people out.
Yeah? Do you know, have you made some friends?
Oh, yeah, a lot of them.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Have you had trouble sleeping from all that mess over the years?
Well, I did. It got so bad when I was married, you know, I had to go sleep in another bedroom because I'd jump up and startle my wife. So what I said, I took one of the empty bedrooms and I went in there, closed the door. Because I'd jump up and holler, that's what scared her.
So you're growing up, you don't even know this is going on.
No, and even when we had the Stars and Stripes, you know, we were all together in a gym in a school, and he'd bring us all together at the end with the drums inside, and I'm thinking, he stood at the door and I could see something on his face, like it bothered him, but he never let anybody know, and I never knew that till years later, that he had post-traumatic stress. In fact, it was in his 70s is when they diagnosed him. He was in his 70s.
Really?
I didn't know
Yeah.
what I had.
Did they give you any help?
No, they examined me when I came back from overseas, and I called me in. They said, "You have any problems?" I get headaches, and I jump out of bed, this and that, and that was the end of it. I never heard from them since.
Yeah. You know, when I was growing up playing baseball, there was a kid I played with, and his father, my father was a coach, and his father, how can I say it? He acted crazy. And so we always thought he was crazy. Well, he was a prisoner of war twice.
Okay.
And so he was just buried, and I went to the funeral, and I found out about that, and I thought, there we go. We didn't know that. That'll do it. You know? So, I mean, you came back whole,
Yeah.
and you were blessed with a lot to be able to even return.
I didn't know what I had. Didn't know what I had until they shipped me down to Veterans Hospital. They examined me by two doctors, you know.
Yeah.
And that's what they told me that so I'm 30% really.
Well, and that also speaks to the wives and the husbands that, you know, you come back to, and they got to deal with this too.
Oh, yeah.
He was a
but I
good
think-
father. He's a good father. He was a good husband. He led a pretty good normal life for the most part. I mean, he didn't let it get to him.
Yeah.
He did everything for the kids, and you know,
Which not everybody can do.
No.
Because some of it was just so bad.
yeah,
And not everybody's able to handle that.
right.
But you were. And then you come back here and run the Stars and Stripes for all those years and met all these kids. It's wonderful. I'm just so glad that you were able to come and share your story.
Well, like I said, you're about the third person that I had me that I told the story.
Well, I feel
I've turned
honored.
many of my people.
I feel honored because I just appreciate what you did and what all our veterans do. I mean, I have that appreciation. My uncle was missing in action in World War II, so I know what it's like. And they're not all happy stories.
No.
But you have a good story, and you're able to tell it. And you're 91 years old, and you have such a great recollection. You know, you've just been blessed with a lot of good things.
I think I have.
Yeah, you have. And Valerie, I'm so glad you wrote the book, and I'm glad we could spend some time together and talk about it.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
You're welcome. So I just want to finish here today, and thanks again for coming. It's been a
You're
real
welcome.
honor to
I
meet you.
thank you.
It's an honor to meet you.
I appreciate that.
And thank you for your service.
Oh, nobody owes me nothing.
Well, I think we do owe you. I think our country owes you and everybody else that helped to preserve our freedom. I think. But, I just want to thank you.
I
that.
appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you.
I mean, there was 405,399 United States service people that died in World War II. 78,750 people were missing in action that never came back. So, I think we need to think about that. And that's just one of the wars this country has fought for our freedom. And we owe a lot to our veterans. And that's why I wanted to do this show. And I think I want to do more shows. I think I want to do more shows with our veterans because it's important. I think our younger generation maybe doesn't understand how important what you did to our way of life today.
Right.
I really believe that. And so maybe in my small way, I can do some shows. And this was the first one that we did. And I'm so glad it was you guys.
Thank you.
It's a war that not a lot of people, well, they talk about World War II, but not the one part in Italy.
And honestly, it should have never happened because Mark Clark used Monte Cassino as a deterrence so he could get into Rome first. And we lost all those men for really no reason because it should have never happened.
It's a shame.
He was brought up on charges for it, but they never, he was a 4-star general, so they're not going to really do anything to a 4-star general.
Yeah.
So, but it should have never happened.
Never.
He just wanted to keep the Germans there while he was the first into Rome.
Oh, my. Well, it's been a pleasure having you both.
Thank you.
I wish you the best with the book. And if people want to buy it, they can contact me at my show here, and I'll forward that to you. So if a veteran watching this show and they want to come to your hair salon, where is it?
In Penn Hills, 1051 Hamel Road.
And what's it called?
Sensible Styles.
Sensible Styles.
Yes.
And you're the owner.
One of the owners. There's
One
two
of
of
the
us.
owner and the stylist. Is that you get your hair cut there?
Yeah.
No, it's too expensive.
Anyway, thank you both for coming. I really enjoyed the time.
I thank you for inviting us.
Oh, you're welcome. It's my pleasure.
If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't go around.
Well, you're lucky to have such a good daughter.
Yes, she does everything.
And she's lucky to have a good father.
Yes.
Well,
And it's my pleasure to have you both.
thank you.
You're welcome. And I want to thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this show. We really need to appreciate what our veterans have done for us, and we can do a lot more for them, and I think we should. I hope you enjoyed watching. Please join us for another edition of One on One. I'm your host, Lee Adams. Take care.